This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let's get started again. So in yesterday's class, we discussed about how to create an AWS free tier account. And we also talked about why do we need DevOps and what are the good things we're going to get if I start using DevOps, and what are the career objectives which I can achieve if I start using DevOps for my company and for myself. Now, today we start with the first module, which is Git. And when I talk about Git, I will be talking about source code management, or SCM. Okay. So there are many tools like Git which is available in the market, but Git is undoubtedly one of the market leaders which you'll be seeing. Before starting Git, we will be talking about two terminologies which we'll be using very frequently. One is SCM, or source code management. People say centralized software configuration management. But at the end of the day, it is a central location where you will be storing your code, and that will be the single point of truth. So anybody who wants to retrieve the latest code will definitely go and get it from this location. You have GitHub, you have GitLab, you have RTC, you have Visual Studio TFS. So there are various tools available in the market which provides you the same. Then we will be talking about version control, and version control is a subset of SCM. Okay. Now, when I say version control, what do I mean by that? So I can give a very simple example. Let me say I have a folder, and inside that I have a file called employee. So let me open this file. So if I see there are like some names here in this file. Now what happens is, and the size is somewhere around 11 KB. Now what happens is there is another guy who creates another, or he takes a copy of this. Let me put it like this. He takes a copy of this, Control C, and let me just close this first. And he has his own copy, and he is doing something. Let me say he is editing something. Now, when he goes and updates my main folder, it says either you rename it or you replace it. So I do a replace. Now I have my changes, which is like some 88 KB. So this is the latest change or the latest content what I have. But all of a sudden, I realize that the changes which I have done are not correct, or the things what I have done is some or the other way not meeting the requirements. So I have to roll back, but I have already lost the previous version. So it would be great if I was able to retain the previous versions and also keep themselves updating. So this is one of the biggest benefits which you get when you start using a version control tool like Git. Okay, so we came across, or we came to know, there are two terminologies like SCM and version control. Now, why should we use Git? So Git is free and open source. Okay, so you don't have to get started, at least you don't have to buy the license and you have to spend money on that. Obviously, there is licensed version of that. In fact, I would put it like this, that whatever tools we are going to learn in this entire class or in this entire curriculum, there will be two versions of most of the tools which are available in the market right now. One, or the first tool, is Enterprise Edition, and the other one will be Community Edition. So Community Editions are the one which are generally free, and they are open source basically. But yes, you cannot use them for commercial purpose. But when you talk about the enterprise software, you basically use them for commercial purpose, and yes, you pay charge for that. The benefit is you get support from the client whenever there is a failure or there is some problem. The client, or the, like, let me say I'm using Git. So the company Git, the one who owns the company, or the employees of that company, will come to rescue you in case you're facing any problem. So this is the major difference between the enterprise version and community version. Feature wise, yes, enterprise will have a little bit more than what you get on the community side. But for learning purpose, it is very good that you get started with a community edition of this software, and then gradually when you have hands-on expertise and you are working for an organization, definitely you will be getting the enterprise version of that. It is fast and lightweight, unlike other competitors which it has. It is very, very fast. It is lightweight. So when you install Git on your local machine, you will see it is not consuming a lot of memory. Okay, not only memory, CPU, RAM, and anything like that, it is not consuming. One more good benefit is that the data which you store inside Git is very much secured. It uses an encryption technique called SHA, which is secure hashing algo. So it's a encryption technique, I will say, and it uses this SHA technique to encrypt your data. And because of that, your data is very much safe when you go ahead and store your data here. But a warning, do not store your username and password. That too when you have a free account with GitHub, because there are many softwares available in the market which can scan your GitHub repos, because those are freely because those free repos anybody can browse. So there are many softwares available which can browse your repos, get the username and password if you have stored there, and then your account can be compromised. So it is not advised to go and keep username and password there. But overall, if you say yes, the Git tool itself is very secure, the data is intact, and you get your data anytime, anywhere you want. Then on top of that, we are working on a distributed environment where we will have multiple users logging in at the same time. So you will be using the branching technique. So we will be talking more about this branching thing, but in the coming classes. And then we will see how we can bring parallelism in picture. Means parallelly multiple users will go ahead and work on my same environment. Yes, when multiple users will start working, I will have problems with the consistency of the data set or the code which I'm storing there, but there are techniques, there are methodologies which you will follow, and make sure that both the things, the data consistency and the parallelism, go in parallel without bothering each other. So we will be talking about these two things in the coming class, or somewhere next to this. So when I say version control, what do I mean by that? So when I say version control, I simply want to say that version control is a system that documents the change made to a file or a set of files. So you should know who did the change, when was the change done, and what was the purpose of the change. So a comment is expected that you should write there and say, okay, this is the change what was done, and it was done at this and this particular time, and this is the reason why we did the change. It allows multiple users to manage multiple revisions of the same unit of information. Likewise, I can give you an example. If you have an Android phone, Android releases updates at regular interval. It is up to you whether you want to go with the latest version or you want to stick to the version which you are using. And it is a snapshot of your project over the time. So let me say, if I say I'm going to freeze the data over for a December release, during the time of Christmas, I don't want to make any changes. So it's a kind of snapshot. Or you can say, or let me say, in the month of January, when you start, your system crashes. So you have a consistent state. You can say, okay, December end, everything was working. So this is my snapshot. This is my consistent state. Let's start from here. So in the coming hour, we will be learning a lot about Git. We will start with all these things, like what is Git, what is the difference. So when I share these slides with you, you can go through all these questions, and these are the probable interview questions or probable questions which you would like to have a knowledge on, like how can we create a Git project, what's the difference between, how can I know what is the difference between commit 1 and commit 2. So we will revisit this towards the end, and we will say whether we have learned everything or not. Now when I say about source code management, okay, source code management can be done in multiple ways. One of the most traditional or the easiest way in which we used to do it is that we share everything in our local environment. Now let me say I have 3 developers. Come here. So I have 3 developers, 1, 2, and 3. One of them is staying here in Bangalore, the other one is in somewhere Canada, and the third one is somewhere in Ohio. Now, there is a possibility that these people can simultaneously pick a piece of code and start working. There is a possibility. Okay. Let me say that there is a communication gap between the team because they are on different time zone. So the person who picked the code in Bangalore started working, and then the same code was picked up by the person staying in Canada and then the person staying in Ohio. Now the problem is when he will commit the code, he says, I have the latest change. He will say, no, I have the latest change. He will say, I have the latest change. The problem here is that it is data which is inconsistent, which is the worst thing which you want to happen in your project. I want that the data must be consistent. So what I do is I have a team lead kind of person. So let me erase this. So I have a team lead kind of person who will go ahead and store everything on his local machine. Okay, so anybody who wants the data or anyone who wants the project, he will first come to this guy, team lead, and say, boss, I need this piece of code. Okay, take it. So this guy is keeping a track. Okay, this guy, so my person who is, let me say he's sitting somewhere in UAE. So this guy is keeping a track of everything, like, okay, this code was checked by this guy, or he, one second. Okay, so what I see is this team lead is keeping a track and he is informing the entire team, okay, don't take this code, it is being worked upon. Now this is a tedious process. You need this person to be available every time, and then you need a permission from this person to take a code and start working. So you are some or the other way hampering your parallelism. You are not simultaneously, three developers are not parallelly able to work on the same code, and if they do so, they land up into a problem. Okay, now I am using this approach. The problem with this approach is that we are very much relying on this particular person. Okay, and the second problem is if due to some or the other reason this guy's laptop or the server which we are using crashes, it means we lose everything. We are not left with anything, and we again start from zero, which is a blunder. Again, this is not the right way. I should not be doing it like this. So what's the right way? Erase this. So the industry has just discarded this way of working and has gone with a new way of working, which is called centralized version control. Now, when we say CVC or centralized version control, we talk about a server or a repository which is remotely present at a location, and every developer or every person is in who needs that piece of code can get in touch. Okay, he can directly take the code from the server and he can take a copy of it and start working. So at any point of time, you don't have any dependency. If you think that the server may crash, you can always keep a backup of this, or point in time recovery can be enabled, so that whenever you are using this kind of a server, you don't lose the data. But this also has a problem. The problem is that you always have to maintain a copy. Second problem is that there is a possibility that when this server crashes, okay, you don't have the data. There is a possibility. So the latest data is not available. There is a big challenge here. The third problem, what I see here is that whenever this person wants the PC1 wants the latest change, he needs an internet connectivity so that he connects to the remote server and gets the data from there. Again, this is challenging. So industry again told, okay, this is again a serious problem which I see. Let's move ahead. So here comes distributed version control system, or DVC. In distributed version control system, you can say it is a combo of both, means your local version and your centralized version. Here you can see there is a central server, there is a remote repository. So central server, remote repository are same. Okay, so there is a central server, and this central server is connected to each person's machine. So he is staying in Bangalore, this guy is somewhere in Canada, this guy is somewhere in US, and all the three of them have their own local copy. It means you have the code here on the server, you take a local copy of the entire database or the entire code base which is there, and you start working. The moment you do anything like that, you are no more full-fledgedly dependent on the central server, because you have a local copy. Now you don't need the internet connectivity always. Even if the internet is down, the server is not reachable, you will have a working copy and you can get started with your work. Otherwise, if the server fails, the main server, this main server which we are talking about fails, no worries, we have local copy with each developer. Okay, so these are the benefits which you get when you start using a distributed version control system. So here we can have a question: what is the difference between TFS and Git? So I would like you people to explore a bit. So you have to just come here and say, what is the difference between Git and TFS or subversion? Okay, so it will tell you what is the difference. Okay, so just go through this, it will be very helpful and it will make you understand the exact thing which I just now spoke about. So I can just show you a highlight or a glimpse of this. Server architecture is what we discussed, and the other differences will be there, but the main difference is how they are, what is the architecture they are following. So SVN follows the centralized version control system, and Git follows the distributed version control system. So that's the major difference between both of them. You can take it further ahead and you can also read how to migrate SVN to GitHub or to Git. Okay, now this is what we are seeing here. Let me maximize this. So this is what we are seeing here. So there is a remote repository or there is a central repository. Okay, each one of us will have a local copy, and whenever we need the latest code, we pull the code from Git, which is the central repository, to our local repository, and then we bring it to our working copy. We do our changes, whatever we have to, we commit the changes, and then finally push it back to the remote repository. So every developer is expected to do the same thing. Okay, so now using this mechanism, I can have parallelism. I can have multiple users working parallel, not bothering each other, and also maintaining the data consistency, because whatever work you do, the requirement is at the end of the day, you have to push the latest code to Git. If you don't do that, there is no commit, or even if you commit but you don't push it to the central repository or the remote repository, we will not take this as a change. It is there in your local, and unless and until you publish it to the remote repository, it is not seen by other users. So this is what we are going to do. So you can start here. You can say that, okay, I have Git in my local machine. I will have a working directory. I will write the code then I will do a git add where it goes to the staging area, and then from there I can commit and it goes to the commit stage. So I will show you all these things in detail. So this is basically again the same thing. This is how it works. You have the local repository, you have the developer does a change, he commits and pushes it back here. Once the push is done, the changes will reflect here. Other users can pull the change, then update on top of that and again push it back. So this happens day in, day out. And if there is a conflict in your change and your some fellow developers change, you sit together and resolve that conflict. So we say it's a merge conflict. How it's done, we'll see in the coming slides. We will be talking about two components here. One is Git and GitHub. Now, when we start with Git, okay, we say Git is a software which I can install on my local machine. Okay, so let's first talk about Git and then I'll come to GitHub. So I say Git is a software which I can install on my local machine. So what I'll do is I'll go to Git SCM. Okay, Git SCM download. Now this is the official website of Git. Let's go here. Now, Git is compatible with any operating system. You can have Windows, Mac, Linux, Unix, and in Linux, there are multiple flavors like Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, then Linux, Arch Linux, OpenSUSE, then FreeBSD, Solaris, all the versions are compatible. So I will be using a Fedora machine or an Amazon Linux machine, which is internally a Fedora machine. So I will simply say yum install git and done. My work will be done. So for that, what I will do is I will log into my cloud machine. So to log into my cloud machine, the expectation is that by this time you will have a cloud account, a AWS account to be very precise. And let's log in. Anywhere, if you feel that you're not able to understand, just ask or just ask a question or drop the question on the chat window. I'll take it from there. Now, if you don't ask questions, I feel that you have understood everything and I keep going at the pace which I'm going. So probably that's not good. That's not what is expected from us. Now, when I come to my cloud account, okay, I have two things which I should always take care of. So if you come here, the name, whatever you have given, you come to your billing dashboard, come here. So when you come to this billing dashboard, okay, you should come here and see what is the bill getting generated. Is it some unnecessary thing which is running? So for me, there is some elastic cloud compute or some compute component is running which is costing me money. So why is it running? Is it still running? So the moment you exceed the free tier limit, there will be charges involved. So the simple ask is that when you're using it, use it. When your work is done, just delete it or keep it in stopped state. Don't let it run unnecessary, because the moment you keep it running unnecessary, you will see unexpected bill. Okay, and I don't want you to have any last moment surprises. Anyhow, what you have to do here is that you have to come here and just put a budget. So budget is a smart way of taking care of what you're going to spend here. So what you can do is you can create a budget. So basically you can do something like this: cost budget, and you can say next. And there are three steps. You set a budget, what's the scope of the budget, and then the budget actions basically. So give a name, set a budget. So this is a monthly budget, it's a recurring, and I'm doing for the month of October. And I say fixed means at any point of time, if I spend more than $3 per month, you tell me, okay, this has exceeded your estimates. So you can just keep everything as it is, don't touch anything. Give a name, just come here and say give any name. Next. How does it work? So you create a budget, it is 75% reached or 50% reached, you start getting alarms. Okay, so the budget amount for me is $3. I can add a threshold, means the first trigger I get when it is like 50% reached. The second trigger, I can say that send me a trigger or send me a notification or a message or a mail when it is 75% done. So where you want to receive, you put your email here. Okay, as of now I don't need any notifications, so I'll just remove this. I'll go with next. Then if you come here, it says, would you like to add a budget action? Means whenever this kind of thing happens, would you like me to take some action? So I have not set any threshold, so there is no action for me. I can simply skip and say, okay, fine. So I have set a budget here, a monthly budget, and I say that if due to my negligence or due to some reason the bill goes beyond $3, just let me know. As of now, I don't have set any action, but you can set an action like terminate the instance or just drop me an email, things like that, and you go ahead and create a budget. So it is a smart way of dealing with whatever you have been doing, and you keep an eye on what is happening. The other thing what you can do here is you can come here to your billing preference and you can enter your email address here. So whenever you are about to exceed the free tier usage, you start getting alerts on your email address. Obviously you have to monitor your email, and you can save your preferences like, okay, I need a billing alert when this is going to happen, things like that. Fine. So I assume that you will do all these things, and I move to EC2. Now, before I go to this location, there is one more thing which I would like to talk in depth. Now, one of the reasons why Amazon became so popular was because of Amazon's global infrastructure. It means the Amazon's service are available everywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where you are staying, the services are present everywhere, and it is also expanding. The services are expanding. So if you stay somewhere in US, you can see these many data centers or these many regions are there from where you can get connected. You have things running on Europe, you have in UAE, you have in India, you have in Tokyo, you have in Japan, you have it in Australia, you have in Africa. So basically these data centers are one which help you to get connected easily, fast, and give you a DR kind of thing in case you are in trouble. So what I will do is I will just do here AWS latency test. Now, if you know what is latency, very good. If you don't know what is latency, when you type something on Google or for that reason any website, this is your latency. So you request something from the server and then get a response back from the server. So the time taken for that, it may be a fraction of seconds, but the time taken for that is known as latency. And the higher the latency is, the more trouble you will face. So if you request for something which is like taking 2 minutes for you, you will be saying, oh no, what a system is this? This is not working. So what we do is we do a AWS latency test. So what we will be, or let me just come back here. I'll take this one, cloud ping info. So what I'll do is I'll just go down here and do a HTTP ping test. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see that which server is giving me the least latency, because obviously it is like something which is very far from where I am, it will give me more latency. Like let me say North Virginia, it is giving me like some 268 milliseconds. On comparison to that, Mumbai, which is very close to me, is only giving me 39 milliseconds. So the natural choice will be that I should go for Mumbai. Okay, this is one. The second thing which you should, when you're working for a client, the client may have certain restrictions. Let me say I'm working for a bank which is there in Europe. So the bank says that my data should not go outside the boundaries of my country. Okay, so it should stay somewhere, let me say in London. So let me say I'm working for a bank which is in London. So the client will precisely or specifically tell me that I want you to work. Let me come here, service EC2. So it will say that I want you to precisely work on this particular region. Let me say London. I want you to work here. You should not do anything apart from this. Okay. So this is something which you should keep in your mind. Okay. So where you are putting all your things. But yes, once you get started with one region, for the entire training, stick to that region only. So my personal preference is North Virginia, though I get a good amount of latency here. But again, that's my personal preference. So I will stick to this particular region, and something which I have from a previous class, I will simply delete it. So it is shutting down. Fine. So what I will do now, right now is, let me just go ahead and say, let's do something in Mumbai. Just again, anything, you can choose any region as per your requirement. There is no hard and fast rule that you should go with this only. But as per the latency test, I saw that it is Mumbai, which gives me the least latency. So I will stick to Mumbai and I'll do the entire training on this particular region. First thing first. So if you click on the service and you just go to all services, you can see there are a list of services here like compute, containers, customer enablement, development, machine learning, cost, front end. So there are a lot of things which are available there on AWS cloud. I don't need everything, but at least the major ones is what I need. So compute, EC2. EC2 is nothing but it's a virtual server on cloud. So if I keep my mouse here, it says you're going to have virtual servers on cloud. Can I do the entire thing on my local machine? Yes, you can do it, no problem. But the only thing is that you will have additional overhead of network and all. So let's stick to one way of working. We do everything on any region of your choice, but we use EC2 servers or cloud servers to do our task. Now I need a virtual machine on cloud so that I can install Git on that. So there are two things which I need. So if you come here to your EC2 dashboard, you will find everything is 000 apart from your security group. Now, what is the security group? So security group is nothing but it's a firewall. It's a antivirus kind of thing, which will stop the bad traffic and it will allow the good traffic to come in. Let's see what it is. So if I click on the security group, every account will get a default security group. That is mandatory. It comes from Amazon. The only problem with this default security group is, so if you maximize this a bit, somewhere here, and come here to the inbound section, this inbound section, you will see that it says all traffic, means anybody can come in and anybody can go out. So it says all traffic. Now, what's the point of having such a security guard? The security guard is not guarding anything. It is not stopping the bad traffic. It is always allowing everyone to come in, go out. So this is of no use to me. But as a beginner, if I don't want to get into the complexity, yes, it is good to get started. But for a prod kind of work, I cannot ever rely on such kind of stuff. So what I do is I go ahead and create my own security group. So I do this, create security group. Here you can give your own name, like I will give a name as DevOps security group. You can have any name, it can be used n number of times. Okay, so you can say DevOps security group, and it says allows good traffic to pass and stop malware, something like this. Make sure that you put it here on the default VPC. Anyhow, when you get started, you'll have only one, but make sure that you put it on the default VPC. Then come here and say inbound rules, means how are you going to allow the traffic to come inside your server, because your server has to talk to the outside world. What port are you going to open? So I know I can open SSH port. So SSH is nothing but port 22. So this will work if you are using a Windows machine like how I am doing. But if you're using a Mac machine or something else, then probably you will not need this. Or let's stick to this. You do like this. I will let you know what are the differences later. So you come here and say, I would like to connect via port 22, and I'm okay to connect from anywhere. Anybody can come here and connect. So I will say this is SSH port. Then I will also say that I want HTTPS traffic to come in because I want to get connected to internet. So this is port number 443. Again, come here and say that anybody can connect from internet. So I will say HTTPS port. There is a possibility somebody would also want to connect from HTTP port. Again, the same thing. I will say this is HTTP port. So I have these three ports which I have opened. And in outbound, I am not bothered. It says all traffic, means the one who is coming inside my server, I'm concerned about that. But who is going outside, what traffic is going outside, I'm not that concerned. So I will leave as it is. Okay, just scroll down and come and say, I want to create this security group. So now what I see is that this security group has been created and I have a unique number assigned to this. This unique number will be assigned to each resource on AWS, and we say it is ARN, Amazon Resource Name. So this will be unique. Okay. Now I have created a security group. So point number one is done. Second, again, I come back to dashboard. Now here, if I refresh, I can see this is 2, but I need one more thing. I need the username and password. Okay. First, let me talk about the password, because usernames are something which is like common to everyone. Okay. On AWS cloud, the username is common to every cloud server. But what differentiates one server from another is your password. So let's talk about the password. So when I say password, we are talking about Keypair. Okay. Click on this. So Keypair is nothing but it's the password. As of now, I don't see any password here. Let me go ahead and create one. Create a Keypair. So it says Keypair consists of a private and public key and a set of security credentials that you use to prove your identity when you connect to the instance. It means it acts like a password. You can think like it's a password for you. Give a name. I'll give a name as DevOps, and I am in Mumbai, so I'll say Mumbai, and I'll say key. I gave a random name like this, DevOps Mumbai key, and you can leave the encryption technique to RSA. Now, if you're using a Mac operating system, okay, if you're working on an Apple system, then go for .pem. But if you're working a Windows machine like how I am doing, go for PPK. This is mandatory. Come down and say, I want to create a Keypair. Now the same Keypair also gets downloaded to my local machine and it's also created here. Okay. Now, again, I will be back to my dashboard. Now, when I come here, I can see that I have two security groups. The default one, I'm not concerned. So I have one security group which I have created, and I have one Keypair which I have created. Now I'm all set to start my server. So I will go inside this instance running. Currently it is 0. Click here. Instance state running, nothing is there. Just cancel this thing. It says you don't have any instance in this region. Okay, so remember one thing, the instances are region specific. It means if you create something on Mumbai, it will be visible in Mumbai only. You cannot say that I created in Mumbai, but it is not visible in US. No, that will not work. So let's come here and say launch an instance. Now, these are the 7 steps which I have to follow if I have to get a virtual machine on cloud environment. So the first step is choose a AMI. So AMI is nothing but Amazon Machine Image. What are we talking about? We are talking about operating system, application server, and the applications which you want to run on this AMI or on this operating system. Now here it's your call what you want. So let me say I want Red Hat, so I can get a Red Hat machine. I want a Ubuntu machine, I get Ubuntu. I need a Mac machine, so I get a Mac OS here. I need a Windows machine, okay, I get a Windows machine here. Just make sure that you're choosing the free tier eligible ones. If you're using these ones where nothing is written, it means you may end up paying some cost. And remember, the motto here is not to spend unnecessary money. So I will go for a Linux machine, and that too Amazon Linux. Now why I am going for this machine? Because it's a 64-bit processor. It says 64-bit processor, and it gives me a LTA or long-term support. So it says I'm going to give you 5 years of support. So if anything goes wrong, anything is not happening, I'll help you with fixing those issues. Okay, so this is the reason. Plus it is Amazon specific stuff, so it is good for us to get started, and more importantly it is free tier eligible. Select. Now I'm at step 2. It says choose the instance type. So basically when I say instance type, I'm talking about CPU, memory, storage, network capacity, and all those things. Now it will totally depend on what kind of work I'm going to do, and I will choose the instance. Now suppose I'm doing some heavy computation work. So this is virtual CPU and this is GB. Okay, so if I'm doing some heavy computation, I may go for C4 8X large. It has 36 core CPU and it has 60 GB RAM. If I go for C5 large, it has 2 core CPU and 4 GB RAM. But if you see here, none of them are free tier eligible. Who is free tier eligible? So I see T2 micro is free tier eligible. So what I do is I will go with this one. If you want, you can go with anything else, but again, there is a cost which is involved. I don't want to spend any unnecessary money. I will go with T2 micro. In fact, for the entire training or most of the things which I will be doing, I will be using this T2 micro, and it works very well with low to moderate load. So I'm not going to put very huge workload on my servers, so my servers will not drain a lot. So 1 core CPU and 1 GB RAM will perfectly work for me, and I will stick to this T2 micro. Let's move ahead. Don't go here, say review and launch, rather go here, say configure instance details. Now here, I will teach you all these things one by one, but most important thing is how many instances you want. You want 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 100. You can put any number. There is a soft limit of 20, means if you want to go beyond 20, then you have to raise a request with these people and say that I need 25 instances and this is why I need. Okay, but it is good that you get started with one instance and then you leave all the settings as default for time being. Don't touch anything right now. Number of instances, I have kept it as 1. Go and say I want to add storage. Now this storage is nothing but, you can think it is as like a hard disk. So storage device, so it's a hard disk. The EBS volume, we say it's a EBS volume or block storage volume, which will be attached to your machine when you start your machine, or in simple terms you can say it's a hard disk associated with your machine. Okay, next is add a tag. So tagging is something called optional. Now it is good that if you tag your machine, because when you work on a prod environment, there will be hundred of people who will be working along with you, and then you don't know which one is your server. So it is very good practice that you just go ahead and say this is what I'm going to do. So this is the name, this is the Git server. If you want to add anything, you can come here and say. So it doesn't have any standard practice, like if you it's created by, so I will say something like this. So it will be good if you tag it, but again, sorry, it is not a mandatory thing. So Git server, configure security group, use an existing security group. So if you want, you can create a new one, but if you remember, I have already created a one, which is this DevOps security group. Fine, you can see the inbound and outbound here. So I have opened all the SSH, HTTP and HTTPS ports here. I will go ahead and review and launch. Now I'm at step 7. Now here it is saying you can go ahead and check whatever you have given. Are you okay with everything? So I say, yeah, I'm okay with everything, the tag and all, whatever you gave, I'm okay with everything. Just go ahead and say, I want to launch. Now, the moment you say I want to launch, it will ask you for your key pair. Do you have a key pair? So if you remember, I created a key pair, DevOps Mumbai key. In case you don't have, you can come here and create a new one. Okay. But if you create it from here, you get only .pem. Okay. But for Windows machine, you need ppk, putty private key. Okay. So let's stick to ppk, or the one which I have created earlier. I say I acknowledge I have it in my local machine. Go ahead and say yes, launch that instance for me. Now if you go here and see the logs, you can see that the instance launch is successful. There's a green tick here, and if you come here, this is the ARN, unique Amazon resource name, which has been assigned to your virtual server, which is there on cloud. Go here, just click there. You can see the server is up and running. This is the T2 micro. Status is still initializing. So if you see this Git server, and if you click on this, you get a lot of things here: details, security, network, storage, status check, monitoring, tag. Now, out of all these things, I am interested right now in this public IPv4 address, because this is the address, or this is the thing which I'll be using to connect to this virtual machine which is present on cloud AWS environment. How to connect? There is an easy way to connect, where we can simply say connect. The default user is EC2 minus user. So if you're using any Amazon Linux machine, the default user is EC2 minus user. So I will stick to this user, this IP address, and this is the machine's name. I will simply come down here and say connect. So it's also known as browser connect. So you can very easily get connected and you can get started. The problem with this is there is no validation done. Now, because there is no validation done, the biggest problem is anybody can log in and get started. Obviously, one can spoil your work, somebody can delete your stuffs. So this is very risky, and most of the companies block this way of logging in, because if you log in without password, because everybody knows the username, it is not good. So we will also not be trying to log in this way, though we will not be trying to log in this way. We'll close this. We will try a different way. Now, if you are on a Mac machine, okay, please follow these steps. So basically you go to your terminal, you tell where your private key is, then you change the permission of your private key, and you say this. So basically this is your IP address, 65.0.89.39. So you say that I'm going to log in via these credentials, and you come ahead and say SSH minus I, the PEM key, EC2 user, which is the default user, and the machine's IP address, or we also say this is the host name. Okay, so when you say like this, you are all set and you get connected. But if you are using a Windows machine, you will have to download a tool like Putty. So where is Putty? I can go to putty.org and I can download the Putty tool.
So
It is a very
I think for Windows we have to change the PEM file to PPK from Putty tool. Correct?
not needed. See, I told you that when you are see, that's an old way of doing it. When you go to your EC2 and when you say I want a key pair, you are very well sure whether you are going to run it on a Windows machine or you are going to run it on a Mac machine. If you are very well aware that I'm going to use a Windows machine, you can create a PPK key from here only. There's no need to go to PuttyGen and convert the key. So you get the converted key directly. Okay.
Okay.
So I am going to use Windows machine. So I will go and install Putty here. There are other tools which are very similar to this, like MOBA Xterm. This is also a good tool which you can use to connect to your servers via SSH and all. But my personal preference again is Putty. Okay, so I have already installed that, and let's use that tool to get connected. So I'll say Putty. So if I say Putty, it says tell me your host name or IP address. So I will come here to my services, EC2, and I can see one running instance. Go inside. You can either use this thing, this is the host name, public IPv4 DNS name, or public IPv4. Either of the two, both are same. If you see carefully, 65.0.89.39. So basically both are same. Either of them can be used. You can also see there is something called private IPv4 address. Now this is majorly used for internal communication, means within AWS, if you want to communicate, you will be using this private IP address. This is something which is constant, means it does not change. But this public IP address will change when you go to your instance, stop it, and then you again start it. You will see that this IP address will change. One second. Okay, so this is something which will change. Okay, public IPv4 address. Now if you want that I should fix this, better you go for elastic IP. Okay, something which I will be talking about later. So let's park it aside for time being. I will be connecting with my public IPv4 address. But remember one thing, that this public IPv4 address, public IPv4 DNS name will change if you stop and start your server. But if you keep it running, it will stay as it is. So basically IPv4 is a dynamically allocated address which has been given to you. Fine, we will take this IP address and we'll get started. Come here. Let's say I know the user, right? Or it is saying, give me the host name or IP address. I'll only give the host name or the IP address, which is this 65.0.89.39. Fine. Then I'll go to appearance and change the font size a bit so that it is clearly visible. And then I will go to this SSH plus button, click on this auth. Here it says, where is your private key for authentication? Browse. I will go to my download folder and use this PPK key which I have used. So all these things will not be needed in case you are using a Mac machine, because the way you connect on a Mac machine is a little bit different. But once you have connected, given all the details, just say open. It says this contains the encrypted key, it contains everything. Would you like to connect? I say yes, accept. I want to connect. Login as, what is your username? So I will say the default user name what I have is EC2 minus user. It says you are authenticated via your key, the key which you provided, and you are successfully logged into Amazon Linux 2 AMI. It says that there are few packages which are marked for update. Basically 3 packages are there which has to be updated for some security reasons. If you want to update, run this command. So I will just copy paste this sudo yum update -y, and it will go ahead and update all the required packages which needs to be updated for security reasons. Fine. I'll wait. Okay, so I get a success message. It is complete, it is done. So what I will do is I will check few things. So I did a clear so that the screen has been cleared. So if you see here, I am a EC2 user and this is my private IP address. Okay, so I can confirm that if I say IP-ADDR. So if I say IP-ADDR, it says your IP address is this 172.31.35.188. If I come back here, I can see the same thing here, 35.188. Fine. Now what I will do is I will change from EC2 user to root user so that I get more privileges and I don't get permission issues. So the command is very simple, sudo su hyphen. So the moment you say sudo su hyphen, you become a root user. Now who is a root user? So root user is like a Superman. He's an admin. An admin can do anything. He can install, delete, create, and all those things. So I am going to install a few software. So I am going to use this particular user. This name I'm not very much happy about it. I will change the name by using this command, host name git server. Once you say host name git server, again come and say sudo su hyphen. Now if you see here, I'm logged in as a root user to my git server. Again, this name can be anything. Give any name of your choice. Let's clear everything. Once you have cleared this, you're all set to start. Now, I would like to know if git is there. So I will say git minus minus version. It says git command not found. It means git is not installed. If I simply say git, no, I don't get any update. Now, I have a location which will tell me what kind of operating system is this. So I will say cat is for browse. I will say etc, and etc there is something called OS release. So it will tell me about the operating system basically. So if I go here, it tells me that it is an Amazon Linux machine, which is very much similar to a CentOS, REHL, or Fedora. These are the flavors of Unix or Linux, you can say. This is known as Amazon Linux 2, but very much similar to CentOS, REHL, and Fedora. Basically, it is trying to tell you that whatever commands which run on all these operating systems will also run here. Okay, so one of the commands which I recently saw is yum install git minus y. Why minus y? So that it doesn't ask me for confirmation again and again. So if I go ahead and say yum install git minus y, what it will do is it will go ahead and install git for me. See here, the git has been installed and it says it is complete. Now if I come here and say git minus minus version, it will tell that git version 2.32.0 has been installed for you. So this is git. Now let me say I don't know anything about git. I want to get started. So I'll say git minus minus help. The moment you say git minus minus help, the entire bucket or the entire story is open for you. This is what you can keep it with yourself. And you can keep it with yourself. It tells you about all the commands which are available here, all the stuffs which you can use, the common commands which you can use over a period of time. So there are commands like git clone, git init, git add, git restore, uh, git log. Sorry, there are various categories. So if you want to collaborate, you use this set of commands. If you want to tweak your history, you use these commands. Now this is one way, a good way to get started. Apart from that, there is one more place where you will find all the commands, and that is here. just go to Google and say git cheat sheet. So git cheat sheet is something which is very handy. It comes from the Atlassian itself, and you can go here and you can see what all commands are available. So basically you can download it. It's a PDF file and it contains all the commonly used. So it is downloading for me. So it basically contains all the major commands which we use or which we will be using over a period of time, and how to use them, what work they will do. So this is where you can find out all the things. The more you get yourself acquainted with these commands, the better it will be, because when you start working, you may not get a amount good amount of time to practice all these things. But now when you are saying that, okay, we can practice, you can go ahead. So let's be back here. So clear everything. Now what I will do first is I will try few commands. Now to try few commands, what first thing I will do is I'll create a folder here. Now on Unix, we don't say it's a folder, we say it's a directory. And to create a directory, we have a command called mkdir. So mk is make command, dir is directory. You can give any name, like I will say git prac or git command. I gave a name as git command prac. Okay, mkdir, make a directory for me with this piece of name. Enter. I want to see what happened. So the command is ls minus l. So when you say ls, you are saying list the content for me. Minus l is show me it in a linear format. So you can see here that there is a folder with this name, git command prac created for you, and it's showing a weird date here. Sorry, October 27th is what it is getting created, and this is time is not correct, I guess. It is not 2:34 here, so time is not correct, but this is what I can see as the date. Okay, what if I come here and say date? Okay, so it is basically showing me the UTC time. Okay, so it's not India time, it's a UTC time, so I can see that it is 2:34 in UTC. Fine. So I have a folder created for myself, and if I want to go inside this folder, I will say cd and the name of the folder. CD is change directory, or go inside that piece of folder. Come here. Now if you come here and say pwd or present working directory, you will see that you are inside this folder, root /git command prac. So you are inside this location. Here again, if you do ls minus l, you will not be able to see anything. If you do ls minus la, means show me the hidden files also. A means all. ls minus la, list all the files, hidden, not hidden, everything. So now if I want to start, the first command which I'll be using is git init. So git init will initialize a empty git repository for me. So here it says I'm initializing a empty git repository for you, and this is where it is stored. Inside your git prac command prac, there is a folder called .git. If you say ls minus la, you will be able to see this folder .git. If you want to go inside this folder, you will see there are many stuffs related to git which got created here. What are these? These are branches, configuration files, descriptions. Head means where is the latest commit pointing to. Hooks means webhooks, which we'll be learning later. Info, object, and references. So basically these are the things which got created for me. Now I want to go one folder back or one step back, so I say cd space ... means I go back to the place where I was, pwd. So I am back here to root git command prac. See here, I was here only prior to this. Git root git command track. So this is the place where I am. Now, you need to tell Git who is the owner of this account or who will be creating stuffs here. So you will be using a command called git config. Now what I have done is I have kept or I have articulated all the commands which we will be using here at one place. Okay, like how to install Git, how to check versions. If you want some help, how can you get it? So now what I will start is I will start with the git config command. So to get started, after doing git init, you should be using this git config command. So this git config command basically tells my machine that this you are using a git, but who is the owner of this? So I'm saying that there is a user with the username as Vikas99341. He is the owner of this account. Enter. Then what is his email address? So you can come here and mention mention your own email address because you will be configuring for your account. So I will just put the details here. Now I have done a git config username and git config email. Now if I come here and say git config minus minus list, I can see these details here. It means my configuration is done and I am all set to start now. Okay. Now, any doubts, any questions till this point of time? Okay. So basically what I have done is I've created a empty Git repository and I have done the Git configuration. Now, if I want to create a small file here, let me say I'll use a nano editor for that. You have various other editors like Vim editor, VI is there, and there are various other editors. I will prefer nano editor and I will say file1.txt. So I'm creating a file called file1.txt. Now here I will put anything. This is a new file. Control X, Y, enter. Now if you come here and say ls-l, you will be able to see that yes, there is a file called file1.txt. But I will say this file is still not present in Git's domain or Git's environment. Okay. So if I do something like this, git ls minus file, which is okay, files. So if I say git ls minus files, I'm not able to see anything, but there is a file. Why am I not able to see anything? So I will just want you to show this diagram. So when you are here, we are currently here in our local repo, in our local machine. We are currently here at working 3. To see anything, you should just do a git add. Unless and until you do a git add, you'll not see here anything here. So you are at your working tree or working area. From here, you have to move to staging area to see the changes. How can you do that? So for that, you have to use a command called git add. So git add. Okay. Now, before doing git add, I'll use one more command and say git status. See here, it says no commits have been done yet, but I can see there is a file which will or which is to be committed. It is just floating here and there. See here, file1.txt. There is a untracked file which is present. Do a git add to track it. Okay, so let's do a git add. Git add the file name or say git add minus capital A or git add dot, all the things point to the same thing. You can do a git add dot, means whatever files are there, I want to add them to my staging area. Or if you want to give the file name, say I want to add this file. Came two times. Okay, so I say git add file1.txt. Enter. Now, because I have done a git add, if I come here again and say git status, I can see that this has turned green, and it's not asking me like there is a file untracked and all those things. Rather, it is saying the changes to be committed. You can commit the change if you want. To commit the change, you use a command called git commit -m and give any message, whatever message you want. Okay, you give any message. If you don't want to commit this, you want to ignore this file, then you use git rm --cache the file name. So the file which is now present in staging area will be unstaged, or you can put it like this: whatever file is present here will be pushed back here. So let me say I did a code change. Now I think, no, I don't need this. So you want to just let it go. So you push it back. But in my case, I did a git add. It is currently here. I want to move it ahead. So I will put it to this git commit. So I will come here and say git commit -m. So -m is for message. You can give any message. My first commit. Give any message within double quotes. Enter. So it says my first commit has been done, and you can see that one file has been changed and one file has been inserted, and along with that you can see there is a create mode, or there is a SHA-ID getting generated. Now I just want to know what happened, so I can come here and say git log. So if I do a git log, I can see something head. It is pointing to something called master, and this is what has actually happened. There was a author called Vikas 99341 with this particular email address, and on Wednesday, October 27th, he did this work, and this is the commit message which he has given. Now let me say he has done some changes on this file. So I will again come and say ls-l. So I will come here and say this thing again. A new line added. Okay. Now if I come and do the same set of things again, status sta tus, it again says gred, and it says that if you want to commit this, do a git add. If you want to discard this, you can also use git restore to discard the changes what you have done. Now it says first do a git add and then a git commit. If you want to do both things at the same time, means you are here right now, directly you want to come here, means you don't want to first do a git add and then git commit, rather you directly want to do a git commit, then you can use this command, which is git commit -a. So -a stands for add, -m you give for your message, and say second commit. See here, the second commit has been done. I want to check what happened. So I will say git log. I can see two commits have been committed. One was done with this particular commit ID, or we also say it's a SHA ID, SHA ID, or we say it's a commit ID, or we say this is the commit ID. Earlier, if you remember, the head was pointing here. Now the head is pointing here. Okay. Who did the changes? This guy did the change. When was the change done? This was the change done, and this is what change was done at this point of time, and this is the commit message. Now I exactly want to know what has happened. Okay, or I don't want to see this big things. I just want to know what is the latest commit right now. So I'll say git log -one line. I just want to see a short information. So this is the commit ID for the first commit. This is the commit ID for the second commit, and along with that, it is showing me commit ID the message with which it was committed, and where is the head pointing. So it's kind of a shortcut of the git log command. Now I want to know what has been changed here and here. So I'll use a command called git diff, means difference between this commit ID and this commit ID. See here. So it says earlier we had this particular thing. Okay, and then, or you can do the other way around, it will be better for visualization. Just let me come it here. I'll put it like this. So in the first commit, I had only this line. Okay, but in the second commit, there is a plus a or a append of this line, new line added. So basically, git diff command will tell me what is the difference between these two commits. Okay, now whatever you type here, you want to know or you keep a track of that, just go and say history, and you will get all the things whatever you have done till now. Okay, now I'll take a pause here and I'll again open it for questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Please ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, probably you may not get everything. And if you don't ask questions, we can close it for today. Okay, guys, so I see no questions.
So what we have to do to suppose if we stop the instance, then the public IP will change.
That
So
is
how can
elastic.
we?
See, the
Yeah.
content will not change. Whatever you have stored on your instance, that will stay as it is. Only the IP address will change. And I told you that in tomorrow's class, I will tell you what we can do to fix that IP address so that you don't have a problem in seeing the IP thing.
So I think elastic IP will come in picture for this.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys, then I'll drop now. We meet tomorrow again, same time.